You're listening to Business Talk Radio, where we take business to the next level.
Rapping with Dr. Jacalyn connects you with experts from all over the world to help you take charge of your career, your business, and your life. Rap along with us. Visit drjacalyn.com to learn how to become a guest or a sponsor. And now, the doctor is in.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to USA Global TV and Business Talk Radio. I'm Dr. Jacalyn Kerbeck, and you're watching the Business Talk Show. Thank you so much for all the response that we got from last week when al.cini turned the tables on me and interviewed me on this show. I'm very lucky and appreciative to have been interviewed by him because he is the king of interviewing. So let's welcome him today, the king, al.cini. Nice to see you.
The king of interviewers. Thank you, Dr. Jacalyn. That's a little over the top, but I'll take it. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Well, thank you. As I mentioned, we got a lot of really good feedback, people texting me, emailing me. My mother's watched the show 3 times. I'm like, Mom, you already saw it. But it was definitely fun, and it was spontaneous, as we know. So thank you again.
It was all about you, and you've got a great story to tell. So it was totally my pleasure. Thanks, Doc.
Well, thank you. And you have been a huge reason why I've been able to go to where I'm going, because we can't do it alone. So I just want to let everybody know that if you aren't on our email list, the Global Post, please do email me, Jacalyn at drjacalyn.com, because we have a nice tribute to Mr. al.cini today for all of the wonderful things that he's done to help me and help this platform grow. And by the way, this platform is not just about me, right? There's a ton of people who are on this platform every single week, whether they're guests or co-hosts or presenters. So thank you, Mr. al.cini, and I look forward to...
My pleasure, Dr. Jacalyn. It's totally my honor.
Hopefully we'll be doing a lot of other things in the future. But before we get to our guest and what's happening in his world, let's hear all about al.cini, king of interviewing. What is he doing when he's not the king of interviewing?
That's actually a good question. Thank you for asking. I've got this approach, a solution called the Brand and Culture Alignment Toolkit, the goal of which is to take any group or team, could be 2-person partnership, it could be 900 employees in a medium-sized company, large company. And the goal of the toolkit is to align the people in the organization with their purpose. And when we do that, we improve performance, profits go up, errors, mistakes go down. Results improve in general. It's by boosting the employee experience, you also boost the customer experience, and it's a kind of a human engineering approach, and it's fun to do, and it's fun for me to facilitate. So when we're not talking, Dr. Jacalyn, that's the kind of thing I do. Thanks for asking.
And why is this so important to you?
Well, it's important to me because every problem I've ever had was a people problem. I mean, really thinking back on it, there were times when things weren't working. There were times when stuff wasn't doing what it was supposed to do. But in the final analysis, whenever everything worked, it worked because the people made it work. So my job as kind of a scientist is to come up with a consistent methodology for engaging people in the solution of real world problems. And that's exactly where the Brand and Culture Alignment Toolkit came from.
Thank you for sharing that. And when you're not at BCAT and you're not here, you are running your own interview program. So please do tell us about your TV shows.
I am. I host a program on RVN television called CEO Chat that airs on Fridays at 10:30. And I also co-host a program on Friday mornings at 8 o'clock, Morning Coffee. I co-host that with a fine gentleman named Joe Esamendi. All of that is on rvntelevision.com.
Fantastic. Please do tune in there because this guy is amazing at what he does, and you can catch him over at rvntelevision.com and see what's going on this Friday, correct?
Definitely this Friday.
This Friday, for sure. All right, let's talk a little bit about the gentleman that we have joining us today. I have to say, Lorry Rifkin is one in a million. I've actually had the pleasure of interviewing him twice before, and he's got an amazing backstory, which I don't know if we'll get to today, but the man's lived through a lot of things to get to where he is, and he's got this side of him that's, he's an accountant, he's very structured and disciplined, but then he's got this other cool side, Lunch with Lorry. He's like the king of networking. Let's bring him on to the program. What do you say, Al?
I think it's when is an accountant not an accountant? When he's Lorry Rifkin. Bring him out.
Nice introduction. Thank you. Hi, Lorry.
How you doing, Jacalyn? How you doing, Al? I like that. When is an accountant not an accountant? I don't tell people a lot of times I'm an accountant for that reason. No one believes an accountant could be a networking guru. It doesn't fit.
But networking guru is what you are, and you've got a program called Lunch with Lorry.
Lunch with Lorry. I decided during COVID to turn networking upside down. Everybody has this elevator pitch. Oh, you meet someone. What do you do? Here's what I do. And it's about their business, trying to get business. I decided to, when you meet people, you should learn about their lives by asking personal questions so you could develop a relationship with them. And those relationships are based on a lot of the answers to questions like, what's the funniest thing that ever happened with you? You find that you had that funny thing happen to you too. And so now you have something to talk about. So I call it upside down networking. You build relationships first and business will follow.
That's actually, I'm not a Jewish person, but I lived in New York for 23 years. So what you just described was what my Jewish friends call a mensch.
Yes, and I'm Jewish, and I don't consider my mensch because I have a hard side being all the structure and accountant, and the other side. It's a smart. It's a smart way to meet people. I have met thousands of people during COVID because of taking that philosophy, running my own networking events. And I've had close to 500 individuals, unique individuals come. None of them were allowed to say what they do or what they want. How many networking events do you know where you can't hand out business cards and say what you want or what you do?
It's true. That's true.
Yeah.
And by the way, I did sign up for one of Lunch with Lorry's events, and unfortunately it coincided with the broadcast that I'm doing. But I filled out the questionnaire, and they were great questions. And you're kind of like, when you're answering the questions, it's like, oh, no one knows this information, but yet you gladly give the information anyway. So, and then what I have to say is that the other people who were to attend the event, they all reached out to me, and I made connections with people that I didn't know before. And I didn't know what they did or didn't do, but I knew that they were involved with this event. So kudos to you, Lorry, for finding a new approach to bring people together.
And that's the other key. How many networking events have you connect with every other participant before you show up? I do it that way because then you already have met somebody once. And like they say, it takes 7 to 10 times to get to really know somebody to sell them or get to know them to do business with them. So the first time is you get an invitation to join everyone on LinkedIn and meet with them. You come to an event and share personal stories. And then I do a follow-up post on LinkedIn where everyone is mentioned again and talks to each other in comments. Right off the bat, you have 3 introductions to somebody. You're on your way to developing a great business relationship.
Well, I think that's a real personal skill, and it's a learned skill, which is the cool thing about it. And you mentioned too, as we were talking before the program, that while I may think of you as a relationship coach, you actually consider yourself to be more of a mentor. Is that right?
Well, if you look out in the world, you see thousands and thousands of people coaching. You two are very connected. How many people advertise that they're a mentor?
Hardly anybody.
Because there's a world of difference. Anybody could be a coach. Very few could be a mentor. That's why you see nobody advertises a mentor. And I'm a mentor. And here's what the difference is. A mentor has lived in the shoes of what they're going to help somebody on. So if I help somebody whose their business is going down, it's because I had a business go down. You can't coach somebody on that because you haven't gone through I say you could coach somebody on that. You're not going to have the emotional connection a mentor has because I emotionally know what it feels like when I help somebody. That's the difference.
So you're talking to somebody who's having business problems. And, if you're a coach, you're going to say, well, how do you feel about that? But if you're a mentor, it's going to be, okay, now what do we have to do about that? Do I have that right?
And it's going to be I know why you're not sleeping at night, because when my business was hurting, I couldn't sleep. This is what I had to do. You're going to not want to get dressed in the morning. Well, you got to fight that. A mentor has lived through the experience themselves. So not only are they giving you their knowledge, they're giving you the emotional quadrant of this is what you're going to feel as you go through that process.
Great.
Excellent. Yeah, I like to say that I'm branded as the listening mentor. So,
and there's one other thing on mentors. I usually pick who I'm going to help. Coaches advertise their business all the time. I don't advertise that I'm a mentor, because I find people in my travels who are worth the effort to put the time in. And that's another difference between a mentor and a coach.
It's fascinating, isn't it? Did you ever look at it that way, Mr. Cini?
I don't know. First of all, you sang the Twilight Zone there for a second, and I've had a summer home in the Twilight Zone for about 30 years now. So it's a neighborhood that I'm very comfortable in. But sometimes when you work with somebody who isn't trying to make you comfortable living in the Twilight Zone, but is actually trying to get you to leave the Twilight Zone, re-enter the real world, and get clarity in your life, Lorry, that sounds like what you do. Is that right?
It is. And I do it another unconventional way. A lot of the advice I give is unsolicited, because I wish people had done that to me. There was times I wish people would have just told me, Lorry, you got this wrong. You need to look at this different. But many people are afraid to stick their necks out and give unsolicited advice. That's another thing a mentor does. A mentor knows you got to hear things. And even though other people won't say it, a mentor will tell you. Because the next step a mentor does is roll up their sleeves, sit next to you, and actually get stuff done. Where a coach will give you assignments, a mentor will actually sit with you and develop the solutions. And that's why I consider myself more of an implementer. If somebody has a problem, it's easy to say, do this, do that. It's a lot more difficult to sit next to them, design solutions that dig you out of your issues.
I love that. Lorry, what have you found during the pandemic, if you can categorize, are some of the areas that people really need mentoring that might be different than before the pandemic?
I think the number one thing that business owners need is to understand their break-even point and stockpile cash to get them a couple months beyond that, because so many people went into COVID with no funds. If they didn't get PPP financing, they would have been out of business. They needed to stockpile funds. They needed to know their break-even point. They needed to know how to quickly pivot their business into a different business model where they could survive, maybe not make money, but not bleed money. Too many people started bleeding money so fast during COVID, and they had no reserves to help them at all.
Thank you for sharing that. We actually have a comment. Sorry. From Fred. Great post, Lady Jacalyn Kerbeck, Sir Lorry Rifkin, and Sir al.cini. Blessings and gratitude from the Attitude Guru. Fred.
We have been knighted by Fred.
Thank you, Fred. It's great to hear from you, and you're watching on LinkedIn, which I love. So thank you for that.
Great.
I'm sorry, Matt. What were you going to say?
No, I was just thinking to myself. When you're running out of when you're in the middle of a mess, sometimes you're so close to the mess that you really can't see that there are a couple of alternatives on either side of the bad road that you're on that you could jump onto in order to make a difference. Working with somebody like Lorry provides you with the perspective you need, the peripheral vision you need sometimes to see how you can pivot to get through a tough time like COVID.
That's really true. And I was taught very broadly. I'm a broad generalist. So you just described something I tell people. We are taught mostly in our education system to think narrow to wide. We look at an issue and we start fanning out. And by doing that, you miss the solutions that are right on the side. So I think wide to narrow. Everything is a possible solution from day one, and then you hone in on the ones that are going to work best for you. But that's typically how things are not done. I was sitting in a company boardroom once, and they were complaining about they needed 30 acres to build a new plant. It was a $7 million plant. For weeks, we went on to board meetings, where we're going to build. And I looked out the window, and there was a cornfield behind our existing plant. I said, why don't we just buy that property? And they did. But they were so narrow focused, they missed something right in front of them. And that happens a lot in the business world.
Interesting.
Very interesting. How did it work out with that field?
They built a $7 million plant there and went up selling the company, did very well. But time and time again in my business journeys, I see that. Because typically when you're in a business, like Al said a while ago, you're used to a set of solutions that have worked for you, but sometimes the solutions are so far off the standard that you can't see them. I call those our blind spots. One of the things I've learned to do, which is different than most accountants, I find solutions to those blind spots because most of the time they are out there if you think differently. You don't have to be a genius, you don't have to be an expert. You just have to think differently than other people.
So
I love the fact that you're focused on solutions. Sorry, I was going to say, because sometimes people just complain about the challenge, right? And they don't even take the time to think, how can we solve this? So I'm sorry, Al, go ahead.
No, I was thinking, when your mind's eye suffers from tunnel vision, which often it does, then you miss a lot of the opportunities on either side of you that are perfectly valid opportunities. And I know an awful lot of people in business that are so worried about losing work to other people that they forget most of the time when you lose a deal with somebody, it's because they didn't do anything at all, not because they bought from somebody else. And I mean, that's how business gets lost. It's lost due to lack of action more than anything. And yeah, keeping people engaged and motivated in a conversation. That's why I love the way you do it, Lori, because you don't talk about the work. You talk about the person and you let the work take care of itself. That's such an unusual way to approach it.
It is different. And I didn't discover this to my late 50s. That's another thing. Even though now it's clear to me, it took forever in my life to make this clear. Again, I go back to education system in America. As much as they talk about critical thinking, they really don't train people how to think. And that's a big thing. I would rather have my kids go for 4 years of college and all they do is learn how to think than take specific courses, because we're losing the ability to think. And I think that's going to hurt us in our business endeavors going forward. We have to start thinking differently.
Good point. We've got a comment from our friend. Hi, Robert J. Moore. This is a very intriguing talk today. Nice to have you with us today, Robert. All right, we are going to take a break. And when we come back, I'm just going to throw this out there. Al knows I'm on this program 75 Hard, and I have to read 10 pages of educational information every day. I'm on day 12. Anyway, I've been reading a lot of Grant Cardone because you have to finish one book before you go to the other. And he talks a lot about 10xing whatever it is that you're doing, whatever your activities are. So if it's networking, taking it 10 times more, any activities that you're doing. So I'd love to start a little conversation and see if that applies in the area of networking, or maybe it's just specific to certain business activities. How does that sound?
Sounds great.
All right. Wonderful. We'll be right back after this break. Stay with us.
Hey everybody, my name is Ralph Graves Jr. I'm the host of the Ralph Graves Jr. Show, and I want to invite you to pick up my book, Unstoppable. I wrote a book called Unstoppable. It's 7 universal laws that will transform how you pursue and achieve success. The one thing that my 20 years of law enforcement has taught me is that no matter who you are, we are all governed by universal laws, like gravity. But in this book, we're going to talk about laws like the law of forgiveness, laws like the law of control, the law of intelligent practice, the law of expectancy. I was able to see how those, no matter what their background was, those who identified and treated these laws with respect, they were able to go on and lead successful lives. So pick up this book, and you can go ahead and pick it up at Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com, RalphGravesJr.com, where anywhere where fine books are sold. Thank you.
There are 7.7 billion people on Earth today. 40% of these people are under the age of 25. Young adults are the most fertile mission field in the world today. In Scripture, we see Jesus pouring his life into 12 young adults who he equipped to change the world and all of history. Like Jesus, we believe that the best approach to reach the world with the gospel is to invest in young, emerging leaders and equip them to build disciple-making movements. Concentric is the notion of surrounding and sharing a common center. Our center is the model and strategy of Jesus for both leadership development and ministry formation. As a global alliance, we provide equipping in biblical leadership based on Jesus' example in the New Testament. Jesus modeled for us how to make disciples that reproduce. Focusing on leadership development is key to creating movements that spread the gospel and Jesus' disciple-making strategy to young leaders around the globe. Our Ministry Alliance partners are actively equipping leaders and building movements of multiplication that reproduce the life of Christ. Join us today to equip young leaders with Jesus' strategy that will change cities and nations.
The session that we had with BCAT was really entertaining and enlightening. We were able to put together some very specific steps that we as individuals can take, and it was really fun to all come together and see sort of where we're going as a team and how we can all get there together.
We had a tremendous experience with the BCAT partners. One of the challenges that we have as an organization is to make sure that we have the right people in the right chairs doing the right thing. To do that well, you have to have synergy. You can try to dream up ways to make sure that your group does that, or you can rely on experts. We would recommend BCAT partners to anybody who's looking to take their organization to the next level.
Academy Sedan and Limo is a full-service transportation company serving the Philadelphia metropolitan area with full knowledge of the New York City, Baltimore, and Washington, D.C. areas. We pride ourselves on being the most dependable, conscientious company in the industry. Our always on-time service and dependable pricing make us the company to call for any event or occasion. Our vehicles can accommodate any size party for any occasion. Our vehicles range from four-door sedans to SUVs to minivans to limo buses to full-size tour buses and can accommodate groups of 2 to 100. We offer airport shuttle service or over-the-road service without limitation regarding mileage or time, and no drive is too long or too far. So if you find yourself in need of transportation of any type with any vehicle, give us a call at 610-842-4564 and let us show you what a real transportation company can do for you.
Use code ACADEMY2020 to receive 20% off your first 3 rides, including parking and tolls.
Ladies and gentlemen, here it is, the most listened to radio show on the planet. Even the other stations are tuned in too.
You're listening to Business Talk Radio, where we take business to the next level.
Hello and welcome back to USA Global TV and Business Talk Radio. You're watching the Business Talk Show with this guy, the king of interviewing, al.cini.
Not a business talk show.
The only one.
One and only business talk show. And you know, Dr. Jacalyn, before the break, you brought up the fact that you're on the 75-day forced march program. That amazes me. Go ahead, you can put up the book. So, and they're not getting
paid. I'm not getting paid.
So that, from my point of view, I mean, following up on the fact that you asked this question, the tunnel vision part of you is 14 days down, 60 days to go, 61 days to go, right?
I'm only on day 12, but thank you. I have my
I know I added 2 days. I added 2 days to your prison sentence. That's the tunnel vision. Oh my God. But the Lorry Rifkin question is, the hell with it. Why don't you just stop? Do you have to do it? What's the matter with you? Lorry, do I have that right?
Well, what goal do you want to achieve by reading that book?
There you go. Then now you're coaching. Now you're mentoring her. Let's watch you do that for a while.
So there's reading the book and there's doing the program. So I read the book so I could do the program, and the program is 75 days long. So the reason I'm doing the program is because I want to see how mentally tough I am getting out of my comfort zone, following these 5 things that you have to do every day for 75 days.
You already have that answer. You went to create this show.
Yeah.
All the work you did. You have that answer. What's the next? You already got that answer. You're wasting your time, Jacalyn. Where do you really want to go?
Well, I wanted to see if I could stop drinking Chardonnay, which I did.
Why would you want to do that?
just because I gave up caffeine, I gave up sugar. So I thought, let me see about that. And just to see how tough I am, what's going on in here. That's what I wanted to see.
If you want to see how tough you are, I challenge you to go to 10 days in the wilderness and survive on your own, where you'll have to use your mind for everything and come back without any injuries. I know you're a tough person.
I was going to say the Marines are looking for live targets for live fire practice. And, you can just run back and forth in front of a bunch of Marines with machine guns.
Jacalyn, here's how I learned that. My kids last year, I have 2 kids that live out west. They wanted me to go backpacking in Wind Mountains, which is the largest undeveloped area in the continental United States. So I worked out in Milwaukee for a month, carrying a backpack, carrying weights to get in shape for that. I drive up to 8,000 feet. The thing I couldn't get in shape for, Milwaukee's at sea level. I'm at 8,000 feet now carrying a backpack. For the first 2 miles, it was almost 2,000 feet of elevation gain. It was the hardest physical thing I did in my life. And so many times I wanted to quit. And I said, no, I'm going to do it. That's the mental challenge. When you have a physical thing you have to get through, no matter what, and you tell your mind to control everything, everything says quit, and you could do that, you're tough. I would challenge you to do the physical part, because that really proves your mental toughness.
Good point. Well, you have to do 2 45-minute exercises every day, and one of them has to be outside. That's 7 days a week. You have to drink a gallon of water. You have to read 10 pages of educational inspiration. You have to be on a certain diet, no cheat foods. And I think I'm missing something. But yeah, you know what? To answer your question directly, and then I want to talk about 10X, is I already know I'm tough because I have ulcerative colitis since 1991, and nobody would know what it is I've been through. Everybody has their own story. But the bottom line is this is just, it's layering. It's like another level of just to see where I can go. So that being said, what I want to talk about is the 10X concept that Grant Cardone has come up with in his book that's at least 10 years old. And it's basically that if you want to succeed and you want to differentiate yourself, you have to have the mindset of domination. It's not about your competitors and what they're doing. It's about dominating what you're doing and taking your activity to 10 times higher, at least, than what you would be doing. So I want to know, when it comes to networking, what are your thoughts about not doing just what other people would do, but taking it 10 times more?
Actually, I teach people that networking is an exponential math function. And because of that, if you really want to go someplace, you're forced to take it 10 times more. Because if I meet 100 people, it's going to do nothing. I have to let that thing percolate and meet 5,000 people. Let all that build. And until you get that exponential kick in, where the curve starts taking off like a hockey stick, good things don't happen. So in another way of looking at how you describe the 10 times concept, I believe 100%. I'll call that is a lot of functions of life are exponential. You have to put so much effort in 10 times the normal person to get results, because the function of what you're doing is exponential, and anything less than 10 times will not work.
All right. Confirmation from Mr. Lorry Rifkin. Mr. Cini, what are your thoughts about it?
I think that unfortunately most people think in terms of 5% or 6% or 10%, and a lot of people I think aim lower than they can, and probably a lot lower than they should. So I think Lori's point that you have to think about the whole world and how much of it you want, rather than your own little neighborhood and how little of it you have. I think that kind of starting at the top and figuring out how big it can be is a great exercise.
Yeah, I would add for a company, think about this. When I teach people networking, a lot of business people go, we don't have to network anymore. What are we going to get from it? I already got a successful business. But switch the mindset. What if you had an army of advocates working for you who network with customers, suppliers, everyday people? What would the results be then? Then you get your 10 times. So businesses don't look at their employees as network advocates, and I contend they should, especially customer service people. Instead of saying, sorry, there's a problem, they should learn about you, make small talk, and really get to know you, because when you get that feeling of a connection with that customer service person, it diffuses the situation. So I would contend that the 10 times X in networking is, if you're a business owner, you need to have all your employees be an army of network advocates for you.
Interesting. Al, what are your thoughts?
I think that whole idea of building your network because your network can help you. I think it's an underserved market, and I think Lorry has his finger on the pulse of something.
Well, I would change one thing. It's not how your network will help you. I teach people don't go into it that way. It's only about how you could help your network, and the network gods will give you something in return at the end. So when I network, I don't expect anything from people. And this is another mistake a lot of people make networking. It's an asymmetrical function. If you help somebody, doesn't mean they have to help you or will help you. You just keep on helping everybody you can. And again, one day you will have people pay you back, but don't go in with it expecting anything. I started my networking journey 2 years ago with 2,000 connections on LinkedIn. Now I have 6,000. I met 500 people individually. I didn't expect anything from them, but now I'm finally getting things from them. So go in with the expectation you are there to help other people. If you get something, great. If you don't, you gave and you're a winner by giving.
I like that. That's a great trajectory from 2,000 to 6,000.
And more importantly, as an introvert, I was petrified to hold an event. Would anyone come? What do I talk about? And I realized that's one thing. Introverts and people who don't have self-confidence waste so much energy. I'm in that bucket. I'm guilty of that. Waste so much energy on the unimportant that they don't have any energy left for the important stuff.
There's an author I know, Bob Berg, who wrote a book called The Go-Giver. And I keep promising myself I'll learn to read so that I can read this book. And the whole point of it is exactly what you said, Lorry, which is that you give without expecting anything, right? And then wonderful things happen. So my question is, what's your business model? How do you get this to pay off for you?
Well, here's the interesting thing. I have a business called Clarity Management where I fix broken companies or do part-time CFO work. I also have a bookkeeping business called Accounting Solutions, where I originally thought the networking business would make money in the beginning. It didn't, but it funneled business to the other businesses. Here's the dirty little secret. Everybody wants help in networking, but not everyone wants to say, my business is hurting, I need your services. Not everyone thinks they need a proactive bookkeeper, but almost universally, everybody says they want to improve their networking. So I've switched again, had to switch the model upside down. Lunch with Lorry is the marketing arm for my other businesses. It's publicity. I'm followed and looked at by the highest levels of organizations, not for my accounting skills, for the give I do in networking. So the return on Lunch with Lorry will come later, where I thought it would come early. It's not going to happen that way. And that's not failure. It's actually more powerful the way it's turning out.
Okay, now there are a couple of companies in that space. I'm thinking about Vistage and Tab, and every day I'm getting invitations from different organizations asking me to join their mastermind groups or their. How is Lunch with Lorry different from that?
Because you're getting a relationship from day one at a personal level, a human-to-human relationship. It's not based on your position at a company. It's not based on your wealth. It's not based on your ethnic. It's based on you as a person. And so it's the equal opportunity of networking. And that's the power. I could have a CEO sitting next to an unemployed person, and in that Lunch of Lorry, they are the same. There is no difference. And that's the power of it. It's the power of everybody has something to share. Go back to the give. And by sharing, you find commonalities with people. Finding commonalities lets you start a relationship by having a discussion about your commonalities. Relationships lead to something. It might be business, it might be a job, it might be a board thing, it might just be helping something. But relationships are the driver to everything in life.
And you don't charge for it.
I don't charge for it.
That's a big. Vistage is $15,000 a year. Most networking organizations charge a significant, let's say very significant amount of money in order to be a member of these mastermind groups. There's no charge for Lunch with Lorry. At the end of lunch, I don't get hit with the check.
No, I do have an online how to network course. I have a book that's almost done. I'll give you a workbook. If you want to buy that, you can. I don't sell it in the meetings. Okay. Again, I have decided to give away relationships with people because down the road, when I have more time, I'll work on selling the products. That will happen because I gave away so much. But on LinkedIn, you go, how many people immediately go to the sales pitch? Every day I'm getting 20 sales pitches. Here's another little business thing. If you're a business person and get those, most people ignore them. I reverse sell them. As soon as I get them, I invite them to a lunch with Lori. And I get a high percentage of people who come after that reverse sale. And then I learn about them. And then some of those people have turned into great network contacts for me. So don't ignore those sales pitches. Reverse sell them.
I'm going to be busy the rest of the day then in that case.
Jacalyn, you went to a lunch with Lori, right? What was it like?
Well, no, I actually signed up and filled out the questionnaire, but then it occurred at the same time I was broadcasting, so I actually couldn't go. So but Lori, I will.
What did Dr. Jacalyn miss?
She missed. Here's an example of what you missed. I'll ask what the funniest thing has ever happened to somebody. I'll get a story. I have a gentleman, I'm not going to name any names, who said he jello wrestled with strippers. And you look at the gentleman, you go, no way that happened. While we're in lunch with Lori, I get a video of him doing it. I share it. I'm telling you, people share stuff they don't share with their family or spouses because it's protected time. But that gentleman now is a friend of mine. You get friends. I have someone else. I said, I want to go fishing in the Milwaukee River. One of the other participants said, I want to do that too. I've gone fishing with him. He tried promoting my networking course to his business. Just by doing relationships, the business will happen. But I didn't have to say, hey, could you help me sell this to your company? The key of Lunch with Lori is learning how to develop inbound traffic that's greater than your outbound traffic.
Okay, 2 questions. One is, I want to meet the guy, so hook me up. Second is, what flavor Jello, and how did you know about the flavor?
Oh, the video was unreal. It definitely was a very interesting video.
And we are not going to play a clip because we don't have one, but that reminds me of the movie Old School. Did either of you see that?
No.
Okay. All right, forget it. I have a question for both of you. So I am over on Clubhouse every day in the morning. I go to Breakfast with Champions. I don't know if you've heard of this or not, but people who have huge amounts of success, billionaires, on it, and they are just speaking extemporaneously. So someone was on yesterday, and he was talking about the fact that he has raised $1.5 billion in revenue through social media and online sales. And what he said was that he has no interest, and I'm paraphrasing, no interest whatsoever in making friends with people. If friendship comes, it comes. The bottom line is, does somebody have what he's interested in terms of doing business or partnering up? And if not, he doesn't want to waste his time. So it doesn't sound like there's a lot of networking going on there with him. So what would you say to that, Lori?
Dying to hear this.
Everyone has their way of doing it. He's very successful at what he's doing. I can't knock that. But humans are social animals. We want friends. We want relationships. And if you only want them because you're getting something, I think you're somewhat selfish over time. And I was selfish for many years. I only wanted. When I would network, I only asked for things. But there comes a time where sometimes you try something different. When I tried giving, it was more rewarding and it worked better for me. So I would contend for the average person, learning to give will get them better results over time.
Thank you for that. Mr. al.cini, what do you have to say about this other perspective?
I think I've tried it both ways. I mean, I've tried the listen, don't waste my time. This is what I'm trying to sell, and if you don't want to buy it, I don't want to talk to you. And I've tried the who are you, where do you come from, what's your background thing. The second way has always worked better for me. It really has always worked better for me. I mean, it may not work in the moment. It's kind of like farming. A lot of people think that selling is hunting. You find somebody, you shoot them, you bag them, you bring them back. It's a fresh kill. You feed it to the tribe. A lot of people think that's selling, but selling is farming. It's not hunting. It's planting seeds, being patient, planting a lot of seeds. I don't know a successful farmer that just plants one and waters the hell out of it and eats off that. You've got to plant a bunch. A lot of them aren't going to sprout, but you increase your odds that way. It's just, if you think about it as farming, I think what Lori says makes a lot of sense.
All right, I want to jump in there. So having been in the corporate world for my whole career until last year, it was you're either a farmer or you're a hunter? Are you the prospector that's going to go in and get the kill? Are you the one who's going to take the kill and make sure that it's edible and suitable for everybody to eat? So what do you say to that?
It's a good question, Lori.
I'm not in the corporate world because I don't agree with that philosophy. I think a corporation needs a portfolio of personalities and approaches, because if you're a hunter type person, you're going to hunt. If you're a farmer type person, you're going to farm. But there's a lot of people in the middle, and the middle people, I would rather teach them how to give and get something in return from all that giving.
Mr. Cini?
I can think of a religion with a couple of billion members that was started on that philosophy 2,000 years ago. So, why is that? I don't see how that's a bad idea. The only problem is that sometimes you run out of time before it pays off for you. And, if you have any tips, Lori, on how you can accelerate the process of gaining benefit from something like that?
Yes, the tip is it's like farming. Farmers don't just plant seeds. They plant seeds. Sometimes they have to water the crop. They have to fertilize the crop. They have to weed the crop. But if you don't do those things, nothing happens. So you have to constantly work at it. Yes, I might run out of time from the ultimate success. But as I get older, what is success? Is success having only money, or success having tons of friends you could do stuff with? I think if you apply every day, work on fertilizing your network so it's always activated, always growing. You keep on doing that. Again, networking is exponential. You do that over a couple of years, you're going to start seeing gigantic results in the end, because it takes time to percolate to get those results. But you will get them, though. People really apply themselves networking, they do get results. You don't hear these horror stories. I've networked for 3 years and haven't heard anything.
I like it.
I'll give you one more example. If you're looking for a job, a lot of people only look for a job sending resumes out to stuff. Do they ever get any feedback? No, I hear no. So imagine, I tell people, ditch the resume for 1 month and network your way to the hidden job market. Even if you don't get a job, you will get this. Every person you meet will give you some feedback. So how do you want to do it? You want to be the hunter? I'm the score for that big job, sending my resumes out, or you want to be the farmers, developing those relationships, getting feedback as you go, and maybe the next person tells you about the hidden job market. So that's an example of those two distinct approaches. Just send your resume out, or don't send any resumes and just network your way for a job. In the last 10 years, I've never used a resume. I've networked my way to jobs. Imagine if more job seekers would add a higher component of networking for the hidden job market. They wouldn't be sitting at home saying, send out all these resumes, I'm depressed, I never hear anything, no feedback, no nothing. Well, you're not going to if you just send out a piece of paper versus actually meeting real people.
That's so true. A comment I have to that is, when we first started the show, I was living somewhere else, and then a Seasons 52. And instead of, strolling on LinkedIn for guests, I love to just walk around the bar and talk to people and give out my card and say, hey, what are you up to? And everybody had a story, and that was a great way to get guests. But I could have done the LinkedIn route and just cold called people or cold written people. I think there's definitely something to be said about that. Al?
I think that's a great point. And, I'm thinking, as Lori was talking about how he does things, one of the lessons we learned from young people, millennials, the people that we like to think need to straighten up, one of the things they're teaching us is that the way you live your life and the way you do your work should be the same thing, not two different things. And that whole idea that somehow you put on a different hat and become less human when you go to work is something that they hear from their parents that they're rejecting and that they don't want to be like. And I think there's a lesson in that. And the second is, sometimes it's fear of rejection. You're afraid that somebody is going to say no to you, so that makes you reluctant to put yourself out there. But there's this quote, I think it's Gandhi: first they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, and then you win. You need to persist at that, no matter how wacky. I mean, that whole idea that you can get a job at Google by pitching a tent outside Google and living there until somebody finally says, well, what are you doing here? I'm trying to get a job here. Why don't you come in and talk about it? I mean, sooner or later, somebody's going to do that, no matter how crazy. I mean, It's all in the peripheral vision, Lori. I think that's a big takeaway from today's interview with you.
It is. And the other thing is, you mentioned something that stopped me for 50 years, rejection. Then I learned rejection is the key to success. If you're not being rejected, you're not trying hard enough. You have to learn from those rejections to get better, but rejection is required for success. And so I would challenge people, put yourself in situations you're going to be rejected. I have a story about that. So I wrote this online how to network course. I want to get it in universities. I went to 4 universities in Milwaukee, and the answer was great material. I had the chancellor, the deans all review it, got in the door, but they go, we got to kick something out if we take you in, and we're not going to do that. So that was rejection from multiple people. Then I go to a networking event a couple months ago. I go to another university, talk to someone that says, oh, well, look at it. And now I'm doing a pilot of my networking material in a university in town. It's small, but if I would have quit after all those rejections, I'd have nothing. The rejections made me stronger and drove me to find the yes answer out there.
Every famous person who seems to have made it overnight actually spent years suffering one rejection after another.
It's hard. It's painful.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the 10X comes in, where you have to just keep pushing and taking your activity level to the next level and the next level and the next level.
And continually aiming higher and never just settling. I think that's, especially Dr. Jacalyn, in the line of work you're in. I mean, there got to be some days where you put in 18 hours, spent all day on television, in video, and wondered what good did that do you? But
yes.
Overall, when you accumulate all that, I mean, we've had conversations where I've heard you say that, so I know what you mean. But it does start to, it assumes an energy of its own. You just have to keep at it.
Exactly right. And I think the other thing is that when you're doing the things that you need to do, you do see little wins. You see little successes that come. And if you are, to what Lori said earlier, if you are really not about taking and you're more about giving, then you feel this fulfillment because you know that you've helped other people in one way or another. And I do believe it comes back to you.
I know it does.
Yeah, I would say it doesn't have to come back to you. That's something else I teach in networking. As long as you're giving to your network, the network will reward somebody. It will. I call that the take, where you get to take from your network. And the reason, I need to explain this, the reason you have to give to your network first, imagine if everyone took energy from the network, it would collapse like a black hole and nobody would get anything. So you have to give this energy. Now the network has energy, and even a black hole emits energy. So when that energy comes out, there's only 2 things you're not going to know. You're not going to know when it's going to come out or where it's going to come out. But by giving to your network, someone's going to be recipient of that take, because that energy is there. And if you do it enough, the 10X, you do it enough, you're going to get your share of that energy that comes out of your network, where you could get something from it. So that's why you do a 10X, again, is the exponential. If I give to my network 1,000 times over the next 3 years, that network's going to start putting energy out. If I wait 3 years afterward, I will get some of that energy in return. Some of it will bounce back my direction.
So Lunch with Lori is free. I answer a series, about 10 questions, I think you said you give me in like a survey. I answer those questions, send that in. And what's the experience when I actually go to Lunch with Lori? What's that experience like?
I have gotten that almost universally. It's the most unique, rewarding network event people have been to. People tell me they have met all these fantastic connections that they're doing business with, potentially getting jobs from, board positions. And they all say it's a breath of fresh air because they are learning about people as people. In fact, someone gave me, it's human to human networking. And I really like that phrase because it really is true. And it's almost universally, the comments are all pretty much the same. Breath of fresh air. This is how networking should be. Love the concept. Met unbelievable people. Heard stories that made me laugh and made me cry.
Great. And it's a virtual event that lasts how long?
It's a virtual event that lasts a little over an hour. And I'm going to have I originally planned it as a live event and COVID killed it. But I'm going to have a live Lunch with Lori in Milwaukee in October at a cooking school because it's Lunch with Lori. And I'm trying to think of how to do it because the questions are be hard to do in a live audience. I might do like karaoke style, call on people and they have to go up there and answer their question in front of the room.
Yeah, that could be
I
fun.
love that. That sounds like a great time.
Good.
In fact, both of you, if when I get the date, if you want to take a trip to Milwaukee, maybe do a live show from there, Jacalyn.
It's
Yeah, maybe.
Milwaukee and Pittsburgh are two towns that people don't think are great, but they're terrific towns. They really are. Especially Milwaukee. It's a fun place. So
it is. I lived in Pittsburgh too, and Pittsburgh and Milwaukee are the same. They're those middle tier, Midwestern type towns where you just meet a ton of people, not too big and not too small.
And everybody thinks they know what those towns are, and they're totally, completely wrong about them. They're beautiful. They're friendly. They're great places to be. So is that your first one live in a while, or first one ever?
No, the first one was canceled. I had 35 people register. I had to give them all their money back because of COVID. So I'm going to do another one. Now, Lunch with Lori needs a virtual platform long term because I get people from all over the world. But having a live event locally is fun too. So I want to have a blend of them over time.
Good. Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. That makes sense. When you do it virtually, obviously you can have people from all over the world, which is a different dynamic than people who are in the local area, but both are great. Well, gentlemen, I think that comes to the end of our program. And Lorry Rifkin, it has been our pleasure having you. I'm going to spotlight you and run your banner for people who are watching on USA Global TV and listening on Business Talk Radio. Who should reach out to you, and what's the best way to connect with you?
I would reach out with me on LinkedIn, send a connection request saying you saw me on this show, and I'll connect with you. And then the next Lunch of Lori, I'll send you an invitation if you want to try it. It'd be a great way to learn about each other.
All right, so LinkedIn is your preferred method of communication.
It'd be the easiest way to do it. Make a connection request, tell me you saw me on the show, and I will respond to you. And when I schedule my next virtual Lunch of Lori, I'll send you an invite.
And you're quick. I got to tell you, because you accepted my connection request during the break. I'm very impressed.
Was that before or after the Jello story?
During.
Okay. Well, Lori, thank you again. It's always a pleasure seeing you, and we'll look forward to our next interview with you when you come back and tell us how your in-person event was.
Thank you very much for having me. It's always a pleasure being on the show. Al, it's a pleasure meeting you.
Lori, totally mine. I'll talk to you soon.
Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Lori. A lot to be learned there, yes?
I'd say what a great guy. It's a different point of view. You know, normally people think of learning as step 1, step 2, step 3. I learned how to make a cake or a skill, but it's a way of looking at things. It's a different philosophy in life and business. Combines actually the way you live and the way you work. And it was a great conversation. And I think Lunch with Lori sounds like fun.
I think so as well. And one thing I just want to share about networking, and Al, you can relate to this, is I think it was in 2019, someone referred me to the lovely Ashley Owens, who is also known as the Networking Concierge. And I did a segment on her show, Connect to Success. And then from there, voila. And I really believe that was the start of it, was that interview when I was smiling ear to ear. My fake eyelashes were, I just thought, oh my gosh, there's something about being interviewed. And then it ended up me being the interviewer, except for last week. So
it's you're the kind of person who likes to talk to people, Dr. Jacalyn, but more importantly, you like to listen to them too, and it shows. And I think that is one of the big secrets to networking, inviting people to offer things about themselves and without judging them. That is so important, because nothing will shut down a networking meeting faster than judging somebody. And we're not telling Lori something he doesn't already know. It was a great interview. Glad we talked to him.
Yes, I love Lori. He's great. Mr. Cini, before we close up, I'd like to ask you, do you prefer being interviewed or do you prefer being the interviewer?
Yeah, I don't know. I think, I've never really, I don't know. I think I like both. But if I'm being interviewed, it's not so much talking about me as about ideas that I have or thoughts that I have or things we could do together. I don't necessarily like to relate personal stories. That's not a comfort. I can do it. It's not a comfort zone for me. I mean, we've learned a lot about each other's personal lives just talking, but I would never make that the focus of anything.
Right. I already know that.
There is a quote, and this is a quote. I'm trying to remember. I think it was Eleanor Roosevelt who said, "Stupid people talk about people. Somewhat ordinary people talk about things, but really great people talk about ideas." And I believe she was right when she said that. It is better. I think conversations are better when they're organized around an idea or a thought that's forward thinking that could potentially change people's lives. I see you're putting my scroll up. So, the whole point of BCAT is to introduce the idea that there is a better version of ourselves out there. We could articulate it, we could personify it. And once we get to know that better version, we can become more like that better version of ourselves day by day.
And you talk about idea sharing and better version. So my better version today at this moment might be this 75 hard, which again, I'm not a paid spokesperson, but if you want to send the check, okay, you can go to my website. The address is there. But I think we have different ideas at different times that we embrace or we reject. And I think that is part of the journey, is how can we find the best version of ourselves? Many times it's from a program like that. Many times it's from working with a team. I think there's all different ways that can happen. What are your thoughts?
I totally agree. I think that's great advice. And that being open to the idea that tomorrow could be different from today, and maybe that's not a bad thing. I think that's a good way to live.
All right, there it is. We just summed it all up. So whatever is going on in the world, we just gave you hopefully a few little nuggets that can help you take the first step to the best version of you. Just take action, right? And nothing's going to change if you don't take any action.
Thank you, Dr. Jacalyn.
Thank you, Mr. al.cini. All right, before we wrap up, I just want to give a little bit of a selfish plug. I haven't even told you this, I don't think, because I just decided it. Every day at the end of broadcasting, so that would be Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, I am putting on my listening mentor hat, and I am sharing for 8 minutes only, something of interest, hopefully, for the audience. So each week it's a different topic. This week the topic is listening languages. So today's 8-minute topic is about how men listen. Tomorrow will be about how women listen. So anything you want to throw out there about how men listen, Mr. al.cini?
I think men listen to solve, and I think sometimes that gets us in trouble with women.
Do you want to expand upon that?
No, not particularly, but thank you for asking.
Well, one thing I'll just share, and I really got this from my dad early on, is, and I still have done this many times, and you know this about me, I like to tell the story. I like to give the from here up to here, and I think men are just give me the information so I can try to solve the problem, and you can take the rest of it and throw it out the window.
That's a lot of it. That's true. I think you've got it. I think you nailed it. That's not always true. I mean, although men have feelings, although they may not be something they like to express or talk about. But when they do, they're generally not very good at it. And what women need to be is patient while they're listening to that. Because sometimes for men especially, feelings come out sideways.
Well said. Thank you. Thank you. And we're going to be having a therapy show coming up soon. So, no, we all need it. So before we wrap up, Al, what's the best way for people to reach you? We have your banner, but for people on Business Talk Radio, and who should reach out to you?
People, if you're thinking about sponsoring a team building event, maybe toward the end of this year, or you're thinking about having a team building event to get 2022, hard to believe, to get the year 2022 launched properly in your company, the Brand and Culture Alignment Toolkit is a really cool, fun, enjoyable, very meaningful way to build a team. So give me a call. Let's talk about it. My toll-free number is 855-999-BCAT. It's 2228. And my email address is al.cini, C-I-N-I, al.cini at getbcat, getbcat.com.
Thank you, Al. Quick question before I let you go. Were you ever called anything other than Al? Like, for example, I was always Jackie. And by the way, people out there who call me Jackie, please don't. I'm just saying, I just unless you know me really well, Al can call me Jackie.
Quietly do that, but never in front of other people. So yeah,
yes.
I think you're building a brand, and that brand is Jacalyn, Dr. Jacalyn. That's important. You have to stick to that. Yes, I have been called all kinds of things, and well, Alfred is actually my name. I haven't ever used that. When my parents were mad at me, I'd hear it a lot. Every now and then, it'll pop up because somebody knows my name and they'll just sort of spill it out. But yeah, Al is pretty much all I've ever been known as.
And the reason why I bring that up is I found with a number of people, even through the pandemic, people's names have changed somewhat, or they go by some moniker or something. But I like al.cini, such a cool name. You know, it's very Hollywoodish, I think. And so I just wondered if it was an evolution that over time you started using Al, or it was always Al.
It was always Al ever since I was a kid. And I mean, that's what my mother used to call me. So as a kid, and she never used my full name when she called me, except when she was mad. And the nuns would call me by my full name because I was on their index card. But other than that, I've always been Al. And my problem is because I have a kind of a quick cadence speech, I talk quickly. A lot of people think my name is al.cini.
Oh, that's one name.
and there have been a lot of times on the phone where people have said, "So, Mr. al.cini, what's your first name?" And that always means we're going to be on the phone for 10 minutes while I explain that that's not my last name. It's both my names. That takes a long time to wheel back on. So now when people say, "What's your name?" I take a beat. Al.cini. That seems to fix the problem.
Well, it sounds like you've worked it out. So
I've had a few years.
I think that's great. I have a million questions I could ask you, but I'll be respectful of time. So tell us again about Friday, where people can find you to watch your TV programs.
RVN Television, rvntelevision.com. Click on live, and morning coffee is from 8 till 9 a.m. And at 10:30, we have a CEO chat interview, usually tape delayed, so a week later. But you know, it's great show, and it'd be great to have people on board. Thanks for the chance to plug it. Thanks, Doc.
Are you looking for any guests? And if so, how do they reach out?
We often are, and same address, al.cini at getbcat.com. If you think you'd like to appear, CEO chat is for people, CEOs who have stories to tell, business leaders with stories to tell, but also coaches, consultants, trusted advisors, people who have great stories to tell, business leaders. We like to make those connections on CEO chat. Happy to hear from anybody.
All right. Thank you, sir. It was a pleasure seeing you as always. And I want everybody to go over to YouTube channel, USA Global TV, and watch our interview from last week. Okay. al.cini turned the tables on me and interviewed me. So he did a phenomenal job and got a lot of really great information flowing out of it.
A great interview. What a story. Great story. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Mutual Admiration Society. All right, Al, I will see you later. And let's say goodbye to everybody. It was great having you here. We'll see you next week. Bye.